Onna, and this is Check It at the Round Table, where we discuss movies, books, music, and stuff. Today, we are discussing Plus and Minus episode 10, peeps. I don't know how you guys felt about this episode. I know it aired quite a while ago, but Anna's been really busy. As you can tell, my house is a little disorganized as I'm in the middle of packing. But anyway, Episode 10 kind of gave the same vibe as most BL drama series in Thailand's episodes 11, if you know what I mean. In this episode, Fu Li Gong and Jing Xing Xiao go to the baseball arena to play some baseball. And Fu Li Gong, or Jing Xing Xiao, shouts very loudly, "I am really, really glad you like me, Fu Li Gong." And he then goes and gets ready to have Fu throw him the ball as they're pitching back and forth. And Fu Li Gong instead says, "We're breaking up," and drops the ball terribly toward Jing Xing Xiao. Jing Xing Xiao is sitting there going, "What just happened? Why is Fu doing this?" You can tell he's sitting there going, "How did we go from everything's fine and hunky-dory?" Not really, because my dad's a little upset, but how did we go from that to Fu sitting there going, "We're breaking up"? So he marches over to Fu and he goes, "What is going on? Did I do something wrong? Are you unhappy? What's up?" And he said, "Well, I thought I liked you, but the more that we started dating, the more I realized that I didn't like you as much as I thought I did, and so we're breaking up. And we can still be friends, we can still be brothers, but we're breaking up." And Jing sits there and goes, "This is nonsense," and he just walks off. Now, I will say, as I mentioned before in the previous episode, everybody was kind of mad at Fu for episode 9 and episode 10. I will say I unfortunately totally get Fu. Not because I think he did the right thing. I really, really think he did the wrong thing. But I totally understand why Fu did what he did. Because he was sitting there going, "I don't want Jing to lose his dad. I don't want Jing to lose his sister. I don't want Jing to lose his world. He's already losing his mother." And instead of coming to Jing and talking about it like, you know, a very mature person would do, Fu is internalizing all this and goes, "The best way for me to handle this entire problem is to eliminate myself from the entire picture, and then Jing will have a perfectly happy life, I will somehow have a life, and we will be fine." As you can tell, I don't think this was a good plan at all. And as the episode progresses, things get progressively worse because Fu tells Jing he's breaking up with him. Then he goes and he takes and brings Jing back all the stuff from when they were dating, the roses, the whatever. And also the other thing to realize is they really haven't been dating that long. Maybe, I'm guessing, 2 weeks at max at this point. Now, I know they've known each other their whole lives, but it is one thing to be friends with someone for 27 years, and another thing to date them for 2 weeks and think that you're probably going to end up together because you really like one another and have gotten along your entire lives. So, anyway, Fu brings Jing his stuff, and simultaneously Jing gets a call that his mother has died, and he goes with his father and his sister to bury his mom. So when Jing comes back to that apartment that's his, Fu is there with all his stuff. The timing sucks brick. I will be the first to admit it's like terrible timing. And you can tell that I think what's going through Fu's mind is it would kind of, anyone in his places, he's going, "This hurts Jing now, but it will hurt him worse if we continue on in this relationship and his dad cuts him off or he loses his place in his family." And so because of that, you have this friction between Jing and Fu. And when Jing comes back, you know, I do have to say, I think Jing is not that intelligent of a person. He's a nice person, don't get me wrong, but he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. But I have to say, in this episode, I thought it really shined positively on his character in many ways, on how he dealt with a couple of major issues that came up with Fu. Like when he comes back from his mother's funeral, when he sees that Fu's brought him the stuff, he says, "You know, Fu, Fu, I saw today how my dad loved my mom, even though there was friction between them. And even though in his case, my mom didn't reciprocate in the same way. What if we give this one more chance? And I don't think in this situation Fu would have never agreed to it, because Fu thinks that he is part of the problem, and so therefore he must remove himself from the equation, as it were. I think this is called fractional something. I'm not sure. Anyway, math, I was never really good at that. But anyway, so Fu walks out. He doesn't even really respond to Jing. He just says, I have to go. And the next thing you see is Jing goes to his dad, because his dad has just lost his wife. Now, granted, they were separated for 20 years. His dad had to raise Jing and his sister by himself. And yeah, time has passed. But it was still the person that he cared a lot about. And when Jing goes and sees his dad, he says, Dad, I'm sorry that I didn't honor the woman you love so much, even though she really wasn't a part of my life, even though she really wasn't part of my sister's life or your life for these 20 years. I still should have shown her more respect because you loved her as a person. And so he does apologize to his dad, and then he goes at this same day, I believe, and he goes and meets Fu at the same baseball arena. And he says, Fu, when we were dating, I felt like I had gotten the high marks in class because it was so good to be with you in that kind of relationship. And that was really good. And Fu says, well, we'll still be really good friends. We'll still be brothers our whole lives. We just can't be romantically involved because that kind of relationship isn't going to work. I have thought this through to the nth degree. It's not going to work. And you can tell, I don't mean it bad, I'm going, if overthinking was a superpower, I think it would make some people just, they would have the cape, as it were, because you can overthink things to the nth degree and then never get to where you want to go. I remember I was talking with a friend once, because I really don't like the dating thing, as some of you know from my previous podcasts. I'm not against dating, and I'm not against marriage, and I'm not against any of that romantical stuff. I simply don't really like the process myself. But anyway, I was talking with a friend once, and they're going, the problem is that you have the element of uncertainty when you're dating. I went, that is true. And they were like, for people who overthink, that is a big problem. And I was like, yeah, that would be absolutely right for those who overthink. Because if you overthink and you kind of care about people well, you're going to sit there and go, will this be best for them? Will this be the best way to make sure they have a good life? Will this be the best way to take care? And honestly, if you sit there and think about it too much, you will probably never date, because it's way too complicated and there are too many variables to try to protect the person you care about against. And so I think with Fu, he really did, as he said, think about it thoroughly, and he just cannot see a way to make this work. And I think that with Jing, he doesn't know how to get past that barrier with Fu going, and Jing sitting there going, I'm here, it's okay. Can I hold your hand? No, okay, that's not going to work. So at the end of the day, Fu and Jing go, they're at the baseball field, and Jing starts to walk off, but as he walks off, he throws Fu a baseball that has forever plus and minus on it. And he says, Fu, I will never forget your love and care for me. No matter what happens between us, that's going to stay with me. And then he just smiles and walks off. And it reminds me of, I have never seen the whole series. It's on my watch list, and this autumn, I'm taking a massive vacation. I should probably get all this podcasty thing all cleaned up and nice that time. Who knows? Anything could happen. But I'm hoping to watch Sodus and Sodus S. But I have seen part of the end of Sodus S. And there was a quote between Kung Bob and, I can't remember the name of the other character. I'm sorry. But anyway, the two main characters. And the one character says to Kung Bob, what if you knew we were going to break up. Shouldn't it be better to break up now than to wait until later after we've invested more of our lives, more of our time together to break up then? And Kumbab looks at the other character, Arthreet, that's his name. I knew it would come to me. Okay, Arthreet, the guy who likes pink milk. But anyway, he says, no, Arthreet, it wouldn't change how I live, how I care, what I do. Because even if in the future we would break up, I would want you to know that I cared for you fully every step of the way in our relationship. And if we did leave, if we did separate, I'd hope that you would know that I would smile at you and wish you the best, and we would move on with our lives. But that is how I'd want to break up. And I was reminded of that snap quote from Soda's S when I was watching Plus and Minus episode 10, because as Jing is leaving Fu, he knows that it probably isn't going to work out, that Fu has painted his brain into a corner that he just can't process, and Jing does not know how to get him out of that corner. And he's sitting there going, it's probably over, but I'm still going to let Fu know that I will forever care about him. And he leaves smiling, which some people go, why is he smiling? But he's not smiling because he's, ecstatic that he broke up with the person he thought he was going to end up with for the rest of his life. He's smiling because he's sitting there going, it was good, and I'm going to think about those things instead of the bad things that are currently happening. Now, after Fu and Jing break up, Fu ends up going to the bar that Jing usually goes to and has a couple of gin and tonics. And Nikita's there, and she's talking with him. And she says, are you two really broken up? And before he goes to the bar, let me just segue back here just a moment, he goes to pick up his laundry and ends up picking up Jing's laundry because the laundryman, Lele, Mr. Lai, doesn't know that Jing and Fu have broken up, and Fu doesn't want to go into that whole conundrum with him, so he just picks up both their laundry. But as he's there, he notices all the coffee paraphernalia that Yuki had gotten Mr. Lai and the table, and Mr. Lai sits there and goes, oh, Yuki got this, and it's going to be here for a little bit. And Fu looks at Mr. Lai, he goes, I think this is really nice. I think having coffee and the laundromat is a really good idea. And he then goes, and Mr. Lai kind of sits there and goes, maybe, just maybe, I can have both the things that I like. I could make coffee and I could have the cafe. Simultaneously, Yuki, who has felt that he maybe just totally torched his relationship with Mr. Lai because he got rid of the clothes, which had been there for years, and nobody was going to pick up, but Mr. Lai was attached to because he can't get rid of anything. Yeah. So anyway, he's been having trouble working. He's been having trouble, just trying to deal with how does he deal with this issue with Mr. Lai, because he's never ran into something like this in a relationship before. And he ends up talking with Lele, who her dad forgot to pick her up from school. So Yuki, knowing that this could maybe be a problem, ended up picking her up from school. And Lele says, Yuki, do you not like my dad anymore? And he says, no, I like your dad, Lele, but I don't know how this is going to work because I took the clothes. And Lele sits there and goes, those clothes needed to go. You did the right thing. They had been there for a very long time, Yuki. This is not really your problem. And he's like, well, still, your dad is upset with me because of the clothes, and I don't know how to, deal with that. And she kind of looks at him and she goes, well, Yuki, my dad, after my mom and dad divorced, has been very unhappy and very overworking. And after he met you, he was happy again, and he wasn't working so hard. And so will you please give my dad one more chance? And it's very cute to see Yuki and Lele talking to one another, because I love how Yuki and Lele, Yuki really doesn't act like she's a kid. He's just like, yeah, Lele, da, 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 da. Because I think that a lot of times people try to make children, they don't tell them what they're thinking, which can be very difficult. If you were a kid, you'd want to know what's going on. But anyway, I really like that about Yuki. But now we're going to segue back to the bar with Fu. And Fu and his 2 gins and tonics. And Nikita's standing there, kind of helping him get his drinks. And she says, so you and Jing have broken up? And he's like, yes. And he's going, the thing that wakes me up now is the fact that we're not together, and that reverberates in my mind, and the fact that I won't see his very happy smile when in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening, because we're not a couple anymore. And that kind of thing is what made me happy during the day, and now I don't have that. And isn't that weird that that's what you love about people, is the crazy things that might seem so small when you think about them originally. And he says, and I'm going on a blind date. Now, I really don't get why Fu is going from being wishing to going on a blind date. I'm going, this is like the worst thing you could possibly do. I mean, all the relationship things, they never go rebound on things. I mean, seriously, and a blind date for a rebound, that's like... Okay. But anyway, so Nikita finds out that Fu is going on a blind date. So the next day, Fu meets the woman who heads the blind dates. I didn't know there were people that did this for a living, but apparently in Taiwan, there are women who manage blind dates. Who knew? So anyway, and I'm not against, well, I am against blind dates. That seems really... I have to say, though, I come from Americas, where I grew up, and people who went on blind dates, those could turn out really weird. So anyway, I don't know, maybe in Taiwan, they're perfectly respectable and all that, but yeah, in America, it's not always a good decision. But anyway, Fu meets with the blind date lady, I guess is what we'll call her, and she says, you know, you guys really gave me trouble the last time I met you, but you seem like a very nice person, and we'll see if we can find you a very nice girl. Why haven't you ended up, you know, having a girl like you already? And Fu, of course, does not go into the fact that I just broke up with my best friend, and she's a guy, and I'm looking to rebound from this terrible incident. And she says, well, never mind. We don't need to worry about this. I will find you the perfect blind date. And so she says, now, though, are you tired? I know you're a lawyer, because if you're tired, maybe this kind of relationship thing isn't for you. And so then the audio cuts and you don't know the rest of it. So Fu is going to his blind date. He's sitting there at the same table that he was at the last blind date. And up comes Nikita with her hair done differently and a very nice dress, which is very Nikita's. I mean, I like Nikita's clothes, don't get me wrong, but very different style from what she normally wears. And she pops down at the table, and Fu's sitting there going, Nikita, what are you doing here? This is my blind date. And she says, Fu, you have a problem, and I have a problem. We are both similar in our problems, that when we get in a stressful situation, we tend to rush out and do something that we might regret later on because we want to get out of that situation. She said, I'm just saying this blind date thing might not be the best of things for you to rush into. And so she's sitting there, and he's going, well, I don't like blind dates now, but maybe tomorrow I'll like blind date. And Nikki's like, Fu, you're rushing into this. This is not a good plan. And so the girl who he's supposed to meet comes up and says, Fu, who is this lady? And she says, oh, I'm Nikita. I'm Fu's girlfriend. And so his blind date goes bad, and I have a feeling the blind date lady will never help him again. But anyway, after the girl leaves, Nikita says, listen, Fu, you and I are very similar. Yuki brought this up one time, and I really didn't pay attention to it, but when you were talking to me the last time we were, at the pub, I realized you and I are similar. And if you are going to date someone, maybe you should date me. Would you think about it? I'll change for you, you'll change for me, we'll make a couple possibly. At least give it an idea, because it's better than this blind date I get you now. Now, I think personally, this was a terrible idea as well, but I do think that it's kind of funny, because in one way, how I say this, Nikita is a very hands-off person. She's like, you can date me, you cannot date me. I really, either way, am okay, but if you're going to date someone, I think I would be a much better pick than this other woman. Going, I don't know, but Taiwanese drama has some interesting women. I mean, we have this lady Nikita in this drama. We have, in history, to right or wrong, Yezi. I mean, no offense, I'm going, you really can't beat Yezi. But anyway, So Fu was kind of sitting there going, how do I nicely tell Nikita that no, I do not want to date her. No, I do not think we should change so that, we make our partners happy because we are what we are. And so you have him trying to do this, and he ends up standing up and going, Nikita, and at that point she just gives him a big hug. And he's like, I really don't know how to handle this in a coffee shop with this person. I really don't know except as the bartender. So anyway, he's trying to deal with this hug. And as he's dealing with that, Jing walks by and sees Nikita hugging Fu. Now, I will point out that Fu is not hugging Nikita back. He's just sitting there and like, I really don't know how to handle this. This is awkward as all get out. Somewhere very warm. You all can imagine what I'm thinking. But anyway, that is how episode 10 ends. This episode I really didn't like. I wish that we would someday have a BL drama that has no conflict. I mean, there are relationships that people have that do not have, a big breakup before they come back together as a couple. I'm just saying it would be nice to see one of those shows one of these days. I don't know when, but maybe. But overall, I really like this show. I also really think that the characterizations, it is a little slow moving. I will be the first to admit. I've had many comments I've seen on Vicky Rukaton where people say this is boring, it's slow, I'm getting bored. But the other thing that I think is Taiwanese drama is slower than other dramas. And not to be bad to Taiwanese drama, I really like Taiwanese drama, but you have to savor it like a fine wine. And so therefore, it's not something that you're just going to sit there and binge watch the first time through because they don't let you do that. You have to wait, 12 weeks for the whole story. And then, lo and behold, guess what? Next week, they're giving you the extra episode. It's on Gaga Ooh La La, and it's also on Vicky Rukaton. It will be airing on July 7th. I'm just saying, peeps, I know where I will be. But anyway, the thing that I think about this series is it reminded me a lot of, I think it's very interesting that we've had Bad Buddy, we've had Plus and Minus, and we had one other series that involved friends. I'm trying to think of what it was recently. It will come to me. But anyway, where you have people who they've known each other their whole lives, and then they decide to be a couple. And lo and behold, it works out surprisingly well. Now, I will say in real life, I do not think everyone should be rushing out and ending up with their best friend or frenemy. But in the storyline, it makes a lot of sense. The people know each other. They have that camaraderie built. They also have each other's backs. They know what they're going to do and how they're going to live. Now, I will say that the thing I find interesting is, I was actually just researching this recently, but in Western culture, a lot of times, I don't know about Asian culture, but Western culture, people tend to try to change themselves for their partner, which in these storylines would not work at all because they've known each other for years. They're not going to change. They're going to continue to be the same people. I was actually having a conversation with an acquaintance of mine about this because they were like, well, people need to change themselves to be who they need to be for their partner. And I'm going, if you have to change yourself to the point that you can't really recognize who you are, then maybe you're with the wrong partner. Maybe it's better to, be with somebody who appreciates the fact that you really like Star Wars, or you do not like, sci-fi if that's not your thing, and to be okay with it, and to know that if they like sci-fi, they can go, to the theater and watch the marathon sci-fi show. It's okay. But I think that people who think that you have to change yourself for who you need to be as a partner, in many ways, I think that's the thing that I noticed the most in this episode was when Fu Gong and Nikita thought that they needed to change themselves to be who they needed to be for their partners in the future, or to be who they need to be to help their partners. In the case of Fu, thinking that if he changed the fact that he cared about Jing, that maybe Jing would have a better life. The moment that we change who we are, how do you say this? If we have bad habits and qualities that we really should consider changing, I think it's perfectly good to change that. But we shouldn't change that for another person. We should change that for our own enlightenment, as it were. Because really, at the end of the day, it's not that we shouldn't do certain things. Like, I mean, how do you say this? If I had a roommate, which I had for like 21 years, and my roommate came to me and said, I really think we should do X, I would go, that makes sense. We can redo the way we dry dishes, for example. That makes practical sense about doing dishes with more alacrity. Okay, that's good. But if someone came to me and said, I really think that you should give up wearing all your Sheldon t-shirts and your Comic Con t-shirts because those are not as attractive as the Vera Wang outfits like I'm wearing now, I would say, well, nah, I'm going to continue to wear my Sheldon shirts and my Flash shirts and my Comic Con shirts because I like them, and I really don't care what other people think. They make me happy, which in turn makes me smile more. So I'm like, not that this Vera Wang doesn't. I really like Vera Wang. It's one of my favorite brands. I rarely have brands that I like, which is funny because I'm like, I'm not really into black and white, but this looks so nice and classy and sophisticated compared to other attire. But anyway, so my point is I don't think people should change to be the person that their partner desires. It's kind of one of those Stepford wife conundrums. Do you really want to be a Stepford wife, or husband depending, or partner depending? Nah, I don't think so. So I think that if people really are meant to be together, they're going to like people the way they are, without a bunch of alterations. And I think the happiest couples I've ever seen have been couples who were like, don't want to change the person we're with. We've been with them for a long time. We know each other. We get it. It's okay. Do they do some things that drive me nuts? Yes. Do I do some things that drive them nuts? Oh, yes. Do we laugh about it and move on? Yes. And that is my review of Plus and Minus episode 10. You can watch this on Vicky Rugaton. You can watch this on Gaga Ooh La La. They have subtitles for both. I will say the subtitles vary a little bit between the two, so I actually watch them on both to try to get the full subtitle effect. Yes, I am a high-functioning autistic, but it was interesting to see the different subtitle variants. Check it at the round table. Bye!